Behind the rhinestone glare of Nashville's brightest lights, the real stories of country royalty are carved in tears, rumors, and vows repeated until the echo feels permanent. The radio never hints that the sweetest love ballad can double as a farewell letter, or that a toe-tapping chorus might camouflage a scandal big enough to topple an empire. Tonight we walk past the stage smoke into kitchens, tour buses, and courthouse hallways, where legends wagered their souls on promises meant to last. Some romances burned so hot they sparked chart-topping hits and public meltdowns in the same breath. Others limped through decades of cheating, drinking, and last-chance forgiveness. As the curtain rises, remember one thing. Every golden record here was paid for in bruised hearts, empty rings, and headlines too wild for the tabloids. Listen closely, because the next verse might redeem a sinner, ruin a saint, or explain how a broken heart can still sell 1 million copies. Our first dive into the fire begins with Jerry Lee Lewis, the piano-pounding rebel who tried to outrun hell in a pair of snakeskin shoes. In 1957, he married Myra Gale Brown, his 13-year-old cousin, during a quick trip home that would haunt him across the Atlantic. When British reporters uncovered the truth, promoters yanked every poster, crowds vanished overnight, and radio stations slammed their doors. Lewis stood on empty stages insisting love was love, yet the scandal almost silenced the man who taught rock and country how to misbehave. Across town, Hank Williams Sr. was busy melting heartbreak into pure gold, while his marriage to Audrey cracked under booze, jealousy, and late-night disappearances. They fought over missed gigs and overflowing bottles, then made up long enough for Hank to beg her forgiveness in songs that still rattled diner jukeboxes at dawn. Audrey wanted the spotlight he hogged. Hank needed the anchor she refused to be. Their union finally snapped one cold Christmas, leaving Hank with a lonesome whip-poor-will in his chest and a countdown to an early grave. If tragedy had a duet partner, it arrived in the form of Tammy Wynette and George Jones, two voices so perfectly matched that destiny could only separate them with chaos. Their whirlwind romance began with stolen glances on tour buses, grew into moonlit harmonies, and ended in courtroom echo chambers where George's missed alimony payments competed with Tammy's tears for column inches. Jones rode a riding mower to the liquor store when friends hid his car keys, promised sobriety, then melted the vow before sunrise. Tammy kept recording her plea to stand by your man, even as she secretly feared she couldn't stand at all under the weight of broken promises. When they finally divorced, the heartbreak didn't heal. It simply moved into the studio, birthing duet albums so soaked in regret that listeners felt like eavesdroppers on a private funeral. 3 stories, 3 shattered fairy tales, and 1 warning. In country music, the ring on your finger can turn to rust before the chart even cools. Hold that thought, because the next chorus proves that a new bride can be just another verse in a never-ending song of goodbye. Reporters would later say that country music in the 50s and 60s was less about hit singles and more about who was brave enough to turn domestic disaster into a chorus everyone could hum at the stoplight. In that ruthless market, Jerry Lee, Hank, and Tammy discovered that the only thing the public loved more than a catchy hook was a ringside seat to emotional carnage, and tickets were always half-priced if tears were involved. Turn the vinyl over and you'll meet Willie Nelson, a poet in braids who loved fast songs and faster commitments. His first wife left a note on the bed explaining that she'd discovered Willie's affair, then taped his paychecks to the kitchen wall for good measure. Legend says another wife found out about infidelity, gathered his stacks of cash-filled clothes, and set them blazing in the driveway while Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain played on loop. Yet each heartbreak sharpened Willie's pen, transforming private guilt into public confession so irresistible that even the betrayed kept singing along. Merle Haggard chased a similar salvation through 5 marriages, trading prison bars for backstage passes and believing every new vow might tame the outlaw inside. Leona Williams thought she could match his tempo, even stepping on stage to duet while their honeymoon was still warm. But life on the road is written in miles, and each motel left a fresh rumor on the nightstand. Merle later admitted that he could survive solitary confinement but not domestic silence, so he kept gambling on love like it was another hand of poker at 2 a.m. Then there was Conway Twitty, velvet-voiced king of the love song who married 4 times, twice to the same woman, as if his own lyrics dared him to prove Forever could be edited and re-released. Fans swooned over his promises, but behind the tour bus curtain he scribbled apology notes between shows, chasing the feeling of home he could never stay still long enough to build. By the time he sang Hello Darlin' for the millionth encore, Conway knew the real greeting was aimed at a love forever arriving and forever leaving. These 3 men taught country music a hard lesson. You can autograph any record except the one that spins at home. And while audiences danced cheek to cheek to their heartbreak hymns, the next wave of trouble was already tuning its guitar. What the audience never saw were the frantic phone calls to lawyers, the silent breakfasts after yet another tabloid leak, and the way a stadium roar could not drown the single question every man carried. Why does Forever feel so different once the curtain drops? Willie joked that divorces cost him millions but taught him chord changes no professor could explain. Merle admitted in a late-night interview that each wife deserved a gentler version of him, but he kept delivering the encore instead of the apology. Conway simply winked and said the secret to romance was rewriting the ending until it finally made the crowd cry. And so the tour buses rolled on, packed with fresh flowers, secretaries, and prenuptial agreements printed in ink, still wet from yesterday's heartbreak. Spotlights can't cure loneliness, and nothing proves that better than Glenn Campbell's Tempest with teenage prodigy Tanya Tucker. They were fire-meeting gasoline. Glenn's polished grin hid a storm of coke and self-doubt, while Tanya's rebel heart beat 10 years ahead of her age. They smashed up hotel rooms and serenaded each other in the wreckage, convinced that passion loud enough could drown out every warning siren. When the dust settled, record executives called it a marketing dream. Paramedics called it lucky no one died. Glenn staggered toward rehab, Tanya chased a solo redemption, and country radio captured the explosion in bittersweet stereo. Meanwhile, George Jones spiraled deeper, proof that a broken promise can echo louder than any standing ovation. He missed concerts, wrecked Cadillacs, and once reportedly tried to climb atop Tammy's tour bus begging for one more chance. Fans called him Possum, but whiskey called him property, and for years, the bottle held the deed. Still, when George opened his throat, every cracked syllable reminded the world why forgiveness keeps its door unlocked. Not all forgiveness was granted, though. Loretta Lynn stayed married to Oliver Doolittle Lynn for nearly 50 years, surviving affairs, fistfights, and entire winters when he never came home sober. She didn't gloss over the pain. She wrote it down line by line, teaching American women that a coal miner's daughter could confront her man on the radio and still fry his eggs in the morning. Doo bought her guitars, she bought him bail, and together they turned small-town drama into a global anthem for resilience. Every listener who ever hid bruises behind long sleeves felt seen, and every philandering husband heard a warning wrapped in a melody. By now the pattern is clear. Fame pours kerosene on ordinary problems. The chorus strikes the match, and the audience cheers while hearts burn. But backstage, another set of lovers is tuning up, ready to gamble everything on a secret they swear the press will never find. The press labeled their chaos tragic, but record executives counted the profits and called it authentic. Fans mailed letters begging Glenn and Tanya to reconcile, as if public desire could stitch private wounds. George Jones, reading those clippings between AA meetings he rarely finished, once whispered that talent is a curse when misery becomes material. Loretta, watching from her Tennessee porch, understood the bargain better than anyone. Tell the truth, even the ugly parts, and the world will love you for bleeding in key. That bargain still stands, paid in late-night hospital visits and platinum plaques hung above otherwise empty beds. Porter Wagner understood that betrayal can wear rhinestones. He hired Dolly Parton as a fresh-faced singer, promised mentorship, then watched in awe as she stole every spotlight and, eventually, her freedom. Their professional breakup was so bitter Porter took legal action, even while radio stations looped their duets like nostalgic love letters. Years later, they reunited on stage for one final hug, proving that time can polish even the sharpest memories until they sparkle like stage sequins. Elsewhere, Audrey Williams wrestled with the ghost of her ex-husband long after Hank's funeral flowers wilted. She tried to step into the limelight he vacated, cutting records that sounded like arguments with the past. Nashville politely applauded, but behind closed doors, insiders whispered that Audrey was chasing a shadow no applause could catch. Marty Robbins took the opposite route, sealing his private life behind a smile as wide as the Arizona desert he sang about. Rumors swirled of backroad romances, mysterious hotel charges, and love letters never mailed. Marty answered every question with another racing car metaphor, shifting gears away from gossip and into mythology. His strategy worked. The public remembers the gunfighter ballads, not the broken hearts left behind each encore. These stories remind us that secrecy isn't always protection. Sometimes it's just a slower kind of public execution. And over the next ridge, daylight breaks on a love story that dared to fight back against the darkness. Porter eventually confessed that losing Dolly was like misplacing a part of his own voice. Every new duet partner sounded like an echo. Dolly, for her part, turned the heartbreak into Jolene, I Will Always Love You, and a billion-dollar empire built on the philosophy that kindness never means surrender. Audrey Williams tried a similar alchemy but found the industry less forgiving toward women who aged outside the spotlight. She financed studio time, hired the best players, and still heard whispers that she was living off Hank's ghost. Marty Robbins watched the carnage from a distance, scribbling lyrics about strangers in a Tucson bar, perhaps because writing about his own sins felt like aiming a pistol at a mirror. He preferred legends to confessions, so he became one. And in Nashville, myth is just gossip that learned to play guitar. Fans still debate whether secrecy protected their heroes or robbed the world of songs too raw to record. But the answer probably lies buried in some abandoned studio reel nobody dares to play. True devotion is never quiet, and no couple proved that louder than June Carter and Johnny Cash. She met him backstage while he was still married, still drowning demons in pills, still convinced he deserved the lonely road. June heard a cry for help inside the boom chicka rhythm and answered it with patience disguised as playful banter. For years, she watched him unravel under neon motel lights, then stitched him back together with gospel harmonies and stubborn faith. When Johnny proposed on stage in Canada, the audience erupted, unaware they were witnessing a lifeline thrown to a man sliding toward the abyss. Their marriage was no fairy tale. Relapses happened, tempers flared, and the man in black sometimes vanished into the void for weeks. Yet every return felt like Easter morning, and together they transformed survival into a duet audiences still feel vibrating in their bones. Across rural Kentucky, Loretta Lynn kept her own complicated covenant, refusing to abandon Doolittle despite betrayals that would have ended lesser unions. She fought back with lyrics, calling him out by name, daring any preacher to condemn her honesty. Do cheered from the sidelines, half proud, half exposed, but wholly certain no other woman would stand beside him once the final beer ran dry. Their story is messy, heroic, and unrepeatable, a testament that love is sometimes the art of choosing which wounds to keep. Even Kenny Rogers, gambler of both poker chips and wedding vows, found unexpected peace in his fifth marriage to Wanda Miller. After decades of chasing applause, he stepped off stage to raise twin boys and hum lullabies instead of power ballads. Friends say the man who once sang about knowing when to fold finally held on to something worth staying home for. These rare victories shine like porch lights in a thunderstorm, reminding us that while heartbreak sells records, redemption can still earn an encore. But bloodlines have long memories, and the next generation was already rehearsing the same mistakes under newer spotlights. Their resilience also exposed an uncomfortable truth. Country audiences forgive almost anything if the chorus feels honest. Johnny could stumble onto the Opry stage half awake and still pull tears from 10,000 strangers because June stood at his side. Loretta could air laundry still dripping on the line, and women across America thanked her for proving their secrets weren't solitary. Even Kenny, eyes crinkled in permanent mischief, finally admitted the greatest gamble is staying put, not running. In that revelation, he wrote his quietest song, and perhaps his most daring. Hank Williams Jr. grew up chasing a ghost so famous it needed no introduction. He tried on his father's suits, his father's songs, even his father's vices, until a near-fatal mountain fall snapped the family curse wide open. Rebuilt with metal plates and a rebel howl, Bocephus traded sorrow for Southern rock swagger, but his love life echoed the same old ballad. 3 marriages in, he still writes about good-timing women and the price of keeping midnight promises. Wanda Jackson, crowned the queen of rockabilly after dating Elvis, settled into one marriage that outlasted every rumor, proving a stage spark doesn't always ignite a house fire. Yet her early exploits gave tabloids enough fuel to last half a century. Tanya Tucker, forever the wild child, never signed a marriage license, claiming she'd watched too many heroes fall for the wrong signature. Instead, she stacked diamond bracelets where a ring might go and kept the gossip columns busy, guessing whether freedom or fear drove her choices. Lyle Lovett shocked Hollywood by wedding Julia Roberts, then watched the fairy tale dissolve under paparazzi flashes. He retreated to Texas backroads, trading red carpet chaos for quiet songwriting sessions that asked why love burns brightest right before it disappears. By now, the pattern feels faded. Children of broken love songs inherit the chorus, outsiders flirt with the genre, and Nashville keeps the spotlight warm. The record spins, the needle drops, and somewhere a vow is made that the singer already knows how to rhyme with goodbye. Yet the music survives, because truth, no matter how messy, always finds a melody. The pattern stretched further. Kenny Rogers' protege, the fiery Tanya once mentored, taught younger singers how to weaponize heartbreak before it weaponized them. Lyle Lovett, meanwhile, kept a framed photo from his whirlwind Hollywood marriage, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that some fairy tales expire before the credits roll. Merle's youngest children, now musicians themselves, study old interviews like cautionary maps plotting every detour their father ignored. And in dusty bar rooms from Texas to Tennessee, you'll still catch aging pickers warning newcomers that the fastest way to ruin a hit is to dedicate it to someone whose name you'll forget by the encore, yet hope lingers. Fans buy tickets believing love might work out this time, and artists keep writing because the next verse could be the one that finally sticks. Country music survives on that fragile wager, spinning tragedy into possibility with every needle drop. So when the final spotlight dims and the last steel guitar note shivers into silence, we're left with a simple arithmetic. Love plus fame usually equals fire, yet the ashes still glow enough to light another verse. These legends broke hearts, including their own, so we could feel something real between supermarket aisles and midnight drives. Remember them not as saints or villains, but as proof that melody is just confession set to time, and confession, like love, never ends. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.